Welcome to the Farming Without the Bank podcast, the show with a no BS approach to money, hosted by a farm strategy expert and authorized IBC practitioner. Join us as we get real and expose the flaws of traditional financial institutions in order to help farmers take control of their finances, create peace of mind, grow their wealth, and leave a legacy. Now, here's your host, Mary Jo Irmen.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning into today's podcast. And welcome back if this is not your first one, and welcome if it's your first one. I just have a special guest today, which I am super excited about because I have a lot of people that I talk to, and if we're not making a lot of money farming, I always ask people, are you marketing your grain? Are you marketing cows? And I don't know the details of all of that. I'm not going to pretend to know the details of all of that because it is not my expertise. My expertise is infinite banking and life insurance. And so I'm calling in the experts on the rest of it. But if you are not marketing grain, if this is something that's new to you, then I have today's guest that is going to go over what is marketing grain? Why is it important? How can we do it successfully? And how can we make sure we're making money? Because remember, we are in the business of farming. The business of farming, we are not there for a loss. So today I am talking to Tim Bickett, who is a branch manager for the ARC group and a market advisor. And we are going to learn all about marketing correctly so that we have income to do something with and perhaps even start a policy. There's a concept, right? While you're all listening. So welcome, Tim.
Well, thank you so much, Mary Jo, for inviting me to be part of this. I have to say that I have been an avid follower of your podcast. I get to travel some with my job, and that's one of the things that I'd rather do than try to always find a station is that I get a podcast set up prior to taking off. And so I appreciate your podcast. It's been good.
Awesome. Thanks. Hey, that was not even solicited, guys. That was and Tim and I have been talking about infinite banking for probably a year or better. So
Yeah.
He didn't drink all the Kool-Aid right away either. He learned, and he was like most of you, I'm sure, out there listening, making sure that it's legit and it works and all this good stuff. But I was introduced to the ARC group about 2 years ago, and through one of the co-owners, I believe, of that group. And so I was super interested. I also have other brokers, I guess you would call them, that do marketing as clients as well. And so the whole marketing thing has just always been very interesting to me. And the way the ARC group does it is a little bit different than what most people are doing for marketing. And so that's why we have Tim on today. So Tim, can you just share, before we get into all the marketing talk, can you just share a little bit about why you chose this route? Because it's not something, the marketing side isn't something that you've always done.
Correct. And so, in today's day and age, with everything going on, I am proud to say that I am from South Dakota. Okay. Midwest in general, South Dakota specifically. But it's interesting. I grew up in Eastern South Dakota, and I'm the sixth of 9 kids. And when I was 11, my mom told me, said, boys, I'm going to put clothes on your back and shoes on your feet. But if you want to wear that fashion stuff, it's up to you. And that was her drive to get us out of the house. And we picked rocks, we painted fences, we, pulled weeds, whatever, hauled bales, of course. And it's through that efforts that I developed a relationship with a neighbor and worked for him off and on for about 3-4 years. But the summer I turned 15, I started working for him full time. And I worked for them and partnered with them up until 2002. And it was a great relationship and kind of his son was coming back into the operation, and I had an opportunity to put my animal science education to use in a different fashion. And it worked out for both of us, really, and was part of their family transition. And so that led me into doing sales and consulting. And part of it is that I have a saying that I talk about a lot about ideal isn't always practical and practical isn't always ideal. And the good Lord feeds blind squirrels too, right? And so I never had an intention that I would have a sales and or consulting career. It was production agriculture. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be the guy growing stuff. But being led to where I'm at today, it's hard to envision life any other way. And, I was in Saskatchewan a few years back. I was invited to speak at the Saskatchewan Stock Growers Conference and talk about cattle buildings that I was representing and helping people build cattle barns. And one of the participants asked me, kind of stuck their finger in my chest and said, "What gives you the right to come speak to us?" And I was kind of offended by it, really. And I thought about it a little bit. And that was the evening before I was supposed to speak. And the next morning I got up there and I was like, I hadn't planned for this to be a part of my talk that I was going to give. But, yeah. And I said that. I said, yesterday, somebody here challenged me as to why I was qualified to come speak to you. And I started thinking about my education and my experience. But then it led me to the thought is like, while those are important, it is my passion for agriculture and the people that are involved in it that makes me qualified to come speak to you today. Because I know when I build opportunity for your family, I'm also helping build opportunity for my kids if they want to choose agriculture as their path, and that was very well received. And the guy that poked me in the chest the night before was sitting in the front table. He just gives me a nice thumbs up. And I'm like, was that intentional? And so he brought out my best by challenging me with a tough question. And that part of it was really my cattle building world that actually led me to ARC Group. That one of my broker partners came to one of our open houses looking for a cattle building for his own operation. And he would happen to be a part of my group, and this is kind of the direction, if you will. There's more than 400 people at that open house that day. And I was giving tours. I gave 30 or 40 tours that day. My broker partner, Shane, just happened to be part of my group. We hit it off. We carried a connection forward. And I kept harassing him. I said, when are you going to open a branch office in Minnesota? Because I know I got friends, neighbors, and customers that just need what you guys are offering. And in 2018, when I asked that question again, kind of like a pestering kid, mom, it's just, when are you going to open his branch office? He said, whenever you're ready. And that led me to really think about it more strategically. And was it something that I could provide a value over and above the cost structure? Because that's, to me, when I work for somebody, that's my goal, is that I need to provide value over my cost. And that's so I can sleep at night. And so that's a little bit of how I've got here. And it's really about a passion for agriculture in rural America. And I'm really excited about this.
And that's funny because it's the same thing with me, right? People say, well, I had a guy post on Facebook the other day and said, how many acres does Princess farm? And so apparently I'm a princess. I should have a crown. Yeah. Right. Where's my crown? My glittery clothes. But why believe what Mary Jo has to say? What the heck does she know about agriculture? Because I don't have farm ground. I'm not farming. Right. That doesn't mean that I have to farm to have the passion for farming. Does your banker farm? Most of your bankers don't farm, yet you're allowing them to make your decisions. And so if there is, and we all stay in our lanes, I'm not going to cross lanes because I don't know, I'm not the expert in that field. And so how can I be a farmer and do this at the same time? I've seen people try and they fail because you can't do two things at once and be good at both of them and both of them be super productive, depending on how far you want to take that business. So I love that. I love the answer. Love it. It's great. Okay. So
back to the part of that aspect of, why would somebody need an accountant? Why would somebody need a veterinarian? Yeah. Why does somebody need a market advisor? to provide a service in a professional manner that they either cannot or don't wish to provide for themselves.
So you asked my next question. Why do not just, you answered the why do I need a market advisor, but why
Right.
do I need to market grain? But I think first, let's go very basic and let's act like the people listening have no idea what that means. Because I can tell you there are a lot of people I talk to, because they're not all 10,000, 20,000 acre farms. There are a lot of people that I've talked to that are small farmers. What does it mean to market grain?
Okay. So it kind of gets back to just the basics. You are going to produce a commodity, and let's talk about corn. Let's use that as our base of conversation. So you raise that crop, and you raise that crop to be sold. Okay. And if you're a livestock guy, you're still going to sell it. You're going to sell it to your cattle or hog or chicken feeding operation. You are going to sell that, right? And that process of selling, that's marketing. Okay. In the non-agricultural world, marketing means getting people to understand my product, and so they come in the door and are interested in buying it. In the grain world, marketing means I'm going to take a product to market, right? That I'm going to sell it to somebody. Some of the challenges with that in agriculture is that we are price takers. If I go into the hardware store, there's a set price on a 9/16 wrench. I don't have an opportunity to negotiate above or below that set price. There's a set price on that 9/16 wrench. And if I believe it's a fair price, I'll purchase it, right? But that price is set by the guy selling it. In agriculture, we don't have that luxury. We don't get to set, this is a generalization, okay? But we don't set the price for the commodities that we've raised when they come to market. We are price takers, okay? And so in our market advisory, we help people with that, bringing that product to market and getting it priced in an appropriate manner.
Okay. So how do you do that better than what I would do it if I just hauled it to the elevator? Because that's what the majority, and I'm going to say the majority of my clients, I can't give you a percentage. I can just tell you the majority of my clients are hauling it right to the elevator and they're not marketing it. Or, and maybe this is a question for a later question, Tim, but they're marketing it, selling it based off of what the guy on the radio is telling them, sell it today because it's the highest price it's going to be. So we're marketing it or we're hauling it in based on what the commodity reports are, because that's what we're listening to every single day, deciding when we're going to sell that grain.
Well, and I think it gets back to, if you are raising a crop, you have to sell it, right?
Yep.
Okay. And so my question would come back to, do I need some help, or do I need a market advisor to help me market that? Okay. My first question is, do you have a plan? Do you have a strategy in how you plan to sell?
No, because I'm just hauling it to the elevator, right? Because that's how Grandpa did it. That's how Dad did it. That's how great Grandpa did it.
And that is one of the beauties of agriculture, but also one of our banes, is that we have this loyalty to history that, well, this is the way we've always done it. Why would I do it any different? And I imagine that in your line of business, you hear that more than most, but that's a part of it. And so, and if the answer to that question is yes, I have a strategy, the next question is, do you have the discipline and do you have the time to execute that strategy effectively? Okay. And if the answer to that question is yes, do you have emotional separation to execute that strategy? And do you still have somebody? Where do you get your information? Who is your advisor? Who is your, the guy on the radio is really good and I've done perfect. Okay. Wherever you get your information and however you develop your plan and however you execute it, that's great. But if you said no to any one of those three major questions, no strategy, and man, I never get it done. Okay. Then those are the two main questions. It says, yes, I probably need somebody to step in and help me define a strategy is great, but selling at the high is not a strategy, okay? Because it doesn't take into account the significant complexity of the market. But at the same time, even if you have a well laid out plan, how do you execute it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's your question that you originally asked was, what makes us a little bit different? And that piece of it is execution and doing substantial execution, meaning that I know when I often talk to new customers, they've done some marketing, but they've really not done enough volume to really make a difference. And that execution, and it's about helping people understand the market. That's part of what we do. It's about developing a plan for their operation. It's then executing that plan and being flexible inside that.
So do you help them, Tim, with the plan? Because farmers suck at plans. Sorry, guys. Sorry to all you wonderful farmers listening. But you're not
been in those shoes before.
When people make an appointment with me, I send an email that says, these are the things I'm going to ask you and the things I'm going to need answers for. And most will show up with no idea that I even sent the email, and they haven't looked at it. They haven't read it. They don't know their numbers. And so what type of, do you help me with the plan? Do I need to know what my inputs are so that I know if I'm going to sell at a profit or not? And I have to do that homework because you're not doing it for me, are you?
No.
Okay.
No.
But I need to know it.
Yeah, we have to have an idea of our cost of production. Now, we'll say this, the market doesn't care what your cost of production is, okay? And I'll just take this year's corn, if your cost of production is $4.25, did you have an opportunity to sell 2020 crop at a profitable level in the past 24 months? Maybe for 2 days, okay? And so that's part of this plan, is that it isn't just about 2020. We were selling 2020 crop in 2019. I've got my eye on 2021 today. And that's really what our risk management part of marketing really comes in, is that it's having a plan to mitigate the risks that are inherent with producing a commodity. Okay. And this is a part where
So I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you because I think that people need to catch that. It's to mitigate the risk. It's not to eliminate the risk. It's not to just say, oh, okay, well, we have risk. We can't do anything about it. No, you can do something about it. You can mitigate it and have the plan that is done where Ag Risk Consulting is doing it a little differently. We're mitigating it differently than what most are. We're not just shooting at the stars, hoping that we can sell high today.
Right.
And haul it in today. And what if the elevator doesn't have room for it? Now, where do we go with it?
Yeah. And so that part of it, and it's mitigating price risk. Okay. You have crop insurance that you have that mitigates weather risk. Okay. And what we do is a risk management plan to mitigate price risk. Okay. And if you, and this is the part that's hard for some people to gather, that even if you have crop insurance and you're raising a crop, okay, you still have price risk. Okay. There are some components of crop insurance that help with that part of it, but you still have price risk, majority price risk. And if you're not doing any sort of pricing on that growing crop from a price standpoint, you are 100% speculator. And how would your lender, whether it's yourself, because you've done a really good job with IBC, or it's a lender in town, if you said, you know what, I think I'm just going to speculate on this year's crop, because that's what you're doing without a plan that you're executing. And speculating is assuming 100% price risk. Mm-hmm. Okay. And
I love that. Are you a speculator or are you a marketer?
Yeah. There's a difference.
Oh, I like that. Yep. I love it. Okay.
And so the basics of the plan, without getting into specifics that really change and can take this to a 4-hour conversation.
We don't have 4 hours.
We don't have 4 hours. No. Is that we focus on 3 main areas, and that is price, and then carry, and then basis. Okay. And so we'll go back, and price is pretty well understood what that is. And we work to set our price using a pre-harvest seasonal incremental selling. Okay. That's kind of the process there. Carry. What is carry? Carry is the difference between our target contract month, say December, and the price of that same commodity contract a month in the future. Okay. So the difference between December 20 corn and March of 21 corn, right? There is in a normal market, the March contract is going to be worth more than December, right? Because there's a cost to store that commodity, right? And so there's historical analysis of that, but we want to try and maximize that on grain that we're going to store. And then in basis is the difference between the futures, the nearby futures month, and what is being paid at that local end user, the elevator. And that's such a good point that you brought up earlier about, if I normally have always delivered my grain to my local co-op, if I work with ARC Group, am I still going to deliver grain there? The answer to that question is yes, if they're the best price market for us. Okay. And that best price market can be because they're the closest, because they offer the best price comparative to other end users in the area. Logistics matter. And then we also have the emotional part of it too, that it's like, you know what? I want to deliver to the co-op because they do great things in my community, and that's worth, a nickel a bushel less for me just to do business with them. Perfect. Okay. My job is to not necessarily make a decision for you about where this grain is going to end up, but to give you all the information so we make a decision that you're comfortable and confident with. That if you decide, I'm willing to give up a dime a bushel to do business with this particular end user because I want to, that's still your decision. My job is to make sure you know that there's a dime difference between using your preferred grain market end user to another. Mm-hmm. And if there's always a dime, even though we marketed to the preferred end user in 2019, in 2020, I'm going to remind you that there's a dime difference, mm-hmm. and that's my job. And so that's basis.
Some of that comes back to emotional though. And I understand that this is where I've always gone with it, but in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, not knowing anything, is I'm running a business. And I might take some of that to the co-op, but we don't have to take all of it there to lose a dime, because at the end of the day, we're in business to make a profit. And that is why we hired Tim, is to help us. So if we want to just keep doing what we're doing, don't bother hiring Tim, because you're not going to make the profit, and we're here to make a profit.
I have a customer today that sits on the board of a local cooperative. Do we market 100% of our grain to that particular cooperative? No, because they've not had the best bid. Yeah. And he's okay with it. He's not going to get kicked off the board because of it, but he can sure take it into it. It's like, why am I not getting all your grain? Because you guys are 15 cents behind the market consistently.
And this is what I really like about the ARC group, that when I was introduced to them, is we're not just taking it to the local elevator. We might be taking corn to a local hog producer. We might be taking it to some feedlot. They're not just looking at the normal outlets, and they have relationships with all these other people. That's what kind of sets them apart. And maybe I just haven't talked to enough brokers to know that. And maybe there are other ones out there doing that, but I like that we can help another farmer out along the way as well, if they're closer.
Well, and you just really defined one of the big differences between the Ag Risk Consulting Group and other marketing entities, if you will. Okay. Your local grain elevator has a marketing staff. There are brokerages out there, and we do brokerage things, and we do grain merchandiser things, all for the best interest of our customer, the independent farmer. Okay. So we can do everything that a brokerage does everything that a merchandiser will do. And yet, at the end of the day, we're not tied to any specific end user until we are ready to make the delivery of that commodity, because we have chosen them because they're going to pay us the best out of the in my local market. Okay. And we still have, and like you said, we have relationships with them. We're not trying to set up a whole different channel for that grain. Our job is, and a big word is arbitrage, determining value differences between different, locations. Okay. Yep. XYZ over here is paying 35 cents a bushel better, but it's going to cost us 40 cents to get it there. Well, we're not going to go there. And so all those things come into play as we are determining for each individual customer where their grain should go. The other part of that is, as we build a customer base in a specific geographic area, how we set up business, I am the cash market presence for my customers. I'm the one negotiating with local end users. And so that I may have 10 customers that all have 50,000 bushel of corn to sell. But when I present it to the end user, I'm presenting 500,000 bushels. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that's where we're licensed grain dealers in the state we operate in to be able to do that. Now, at the end of the day, my same customers that have always delivered to that particular end user, they may still go there, but they're delivering under the umbrella and they got better pricing because we pooled our bushels together. And the other side of that is that people are a little bit inherently lazy. And then if I'm a grain buyer and I know that I can make one phone call to the, Tim Bickett, ARC Group, and ask the question, how much grain do you guys have? And they know that it's farmer direct bushels. We're not pulling out of some other stored area. It's all farmer direct bushels. And so the quality's high. And so we build that relationship with them, but they also know they have to compete for the bushels of our customers. And so those are the things that really excited me about why I wanted to, hitch my family's well-being to this group, is that we work for the farmer. Our goal is to help them stay independent.
And the group is making that contract based on volume, where if I come in, I'm just one guy. So right. I don't have the pull necessarily that you guys have as volume. And so now that just makes sense to me, I guess. We're also independent. Farmers are such independent thinkers. They don't want to work. If we did things as a group and we pooled everything together and stopped fighting with each other, don't even get me on that topic, but I'm just going to bring that up. Just stop fighting with each other and use a method of like this. That is exciting to me, because now we can have a bunch of smaller farmers still getting the benefits of a big farmer because we've grouped it together. And the gentleman that started, who is the founder of the ARC group?
Justin Lovegrove.
Okay. So when I heard Justin's story about why he started, I had a conference call with the whole group, and I might totally blow this story, but I really I'm going to give Justin a lot of extra credit. You're welcome, Justin. But when he came from a big operation, to just boil down his story, he came from a really large operation. And when he was working off the farm, realized farmers did not know how to market grain like the big farmers did. And he just assumed everybody knew that. And so the ARC group started because Justin wants to help the smaller guy and teach you how to do what the big guys are doing. People, listeners, you do not get that. There are not a lot of people like the Justins of the world that say, hey, I'm going to give you the insider secrets. And he's doing that for you. And you get the benefit of that. You don't have to do business with the ARC group. I don't care what you do. Ultimately, Tim doesn't care what you do. It's up to you to make that phone call and make that decision. Am I going to look into this and do something different versus what I've always done? And so you have to start somewhere. Now we are 30 minutes in. And so I don't want to get too super long here because there is so much to it. I can't tell you as a listener, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to Shane, I've talked to Tim, and I still don't understand even a little bit. Like when I try to explain IBC to people and they don't get it, that's kind of what I feel like when we talk about marketing grain. So all I can tell you is I know people that have used the ARC group. I know people very close to me that have marketed with them, that have looked for years to try to find somebody that can explain hedging, that can explain marketing, that can do it differently, and so that they can understand it. And the ARC group came in and explained it so it could be understood. And this is the reason that I'm having Tim on today, is because he is the only person that has been able to truly explain it to me in layman's terms about what the heck is going on, because I'm not the smartest light bulb in the bunch when it comes to marketing grain, right? So at least I have a basic knowledge of it, but I also know that the majority of you listening are not marketing correctly or not marketing at all. And so if you want information on how to do it, Tim, do you charge those people for a consult?
Nope, because that's how we start.
Okay.
We start with a phone call to start asking good questions. And we start by getting to know each individual operation, what crops you raise, how much on-farm storage is available, what are your cash flow needs, yada, yada. I get a list of questions that I need to kind of steer that conversation. And then if we continue on it, then we start laying out that plan and helping people get comfortable and confident with the process. Our programs are designed that if you've never had a market position, that's okay. We'll help you. And my goal is to continually educate my customers as we go through, so they get confident in what's going on. I had one of my customers call me earlier this spring, and it was at the beginning, probably early March, of this whole coronavirus scenario, and the markets were doing what markets do when there's uncertainty, and had some fairly strong volatility. And he says, I needed to call you and just let you know that I've been sleeping really good lately. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't care if you're taking Xanax or melatonin. Why are you telling me this? And he's like, no, you're not getting it. I've been sleeping well through all this craziness because I knew that we had a plan, and I knew that it was being executed, and I knew that you had my back. And if you needed something, you're going to call me. If something needed change, you're going to call me. But I knew that I had my trusted advisor doing what he was supposed to do. And he says, I didn't worry about it. Mm-hmm. And he said, when you first told me that, because that's one of the things that that he would have gained confidence in what we do. He says, I'm like, oh, whatever, type deal. But he said it was so true in that moment of one of the most volatile periods in the past decade in the grain market, that he had confidence, and he had, for lack of a better term, some peace about what was going on. So that was really powerful and really invigorating for me.
That's huge, because we do, and you mentioned it before, in the farm world, we're doing everything based on emotion. Like, I planted that crop, I harvested it, my blood, sweat, and tears are in there. I don't want to sell it for nothing. But if we have the plan, it's no different than having a plan to get away from the bank, right? Having a plan to pass off the farm to the next generation. If there's no plan, you're speculating. I just love that. I'm going to so steal that from you. You're speculating. You're hoping,
you're speculating
and praying
with your farm futures if you do not have a not an inheritance, but just a transition plan. Right. You're speculating on the farm's future ability to survive.
Yeah. And so can you tell me, and maybe you went over this already, but the last time that we visited, you said the ARC group is a little bit different because they're looking at a history of what the market's done.
Okay. So yes, when we are setting our pre-harvest prices, okay, we are right now we are pricing the crop that is being 2020. Okay. And typically the historical best price for that crop is set between the end of January and the end of July in the crop year you're in. Okay. And we do a lot of average. My joke is we're average marketers, right? And people say, why would I want to work with an average marketer? Because I'm not describing our quality, I'm describing our process. Is that I want to sell your crop in a time and get an average of what the market gave to us in that historical time frame. Okay. That I'm going to sell, if you had 100,000 bushel to sell, we're going to do that over 100 days. We're going to price 1,000 bushel every day for 100 days, right? And at the end of that 100 days, we will have a 100% true average of what the market opportunity was in that time frame. And another, story like so. My goal is, and I'm pretty, that I can sell at the high every year. Whoa, you're really good. No, I'm going to sell 1,000 bushels at the high, and I'm going to sell 1,000 bushels the day before the high, and we're going to sell 1,000 bushels the day after the high. And it just gets back to a study that was done early 2000s by, the University of Illinois, that the best farm brokers, if you will, brokerages, could not beat the historical average in a 10-year set, right? And that's the power of the average, is that, yes, we want to be average grain marketers because you can't select 100 data points in that same time frame and beat the average.
Oh my gosh. So people, if you're watching this on YouTube, you may have seen the light go off in my office because I finally get it. Oh my gosh. I have not gotten that for how many times we've talked. I have never gotten that.
See, but it was the story. It was the story about being average, right?
That
is just all about being average. Yeah.
That is truly what, that, it all clicked. Anyway, okay, so good. I'm excited. I'm excited about that because if I get it and there's people out there listening that have never understood it or why, because I do believe that is possibly what sets ARC group differently than anybody else I've talked to in the broker world. And my office used to be right beside a broker and I could not understand what the hell he was doing. So to me, this makes sense. We're not just talking about every day he would talk about the markets and sell and this is what it's going to be tomorrow and projecting and history and and maybe some of that is exciting and the trading of a day-to-day basis is exciting to you. Mm-hmm. But remember, if you're listening, the reason we use life insurance and not the market, the 401ks and IRAs and that sort of thing, the stock market, is because we want liquidity control and guarantees. And here, if we have an average, we have a little more of a guarantee. We're mitigating that risk versus taking all of that risk and deciding what day we're going to haul. So definitely that makes sense to me because I'm not a risk taker and I want to know that I'm making a profit in my business. Okay. Right. So Tim, how do people get a hold of you? Because you can work with anybody. And if you can't work with somebody, Tim is a lot like me, which is why I like Tim. If I can't work with you, I'm going to send you to somebody that you can work with. If we can't do business, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to take money from you. We just can't do it. And so if it is not going to cost you anything to reach out to Tim, if he can't help you, he's going to be honest and tell you he can't help you. Because he's from South Dakota, Minnesota, North Dakota. We're all the Midwest honesty, right? And so Tim, how do they... you
betcha. How's your bacon?
Okay, that is definitely Minnesota, not North Dakota. So how do people get a hold of you?
So probably the easiest way, just reach out to me on my office phone. It's 507-295-3210. And wherever I'm at, that number tags with me, forwards to my cell phone when I'm out of my office. That works pretty well. Or you can drop me an email. Pretty simple, just T as in Tom, Bickett at agrisk.net, tbickett@agrisk.net. Or you can stalk me on one of the social media sites that are out there. I'm on LinkedIn under Tim Bickett, Facebook as well. And I'm on Twitter as @Bick_Tim. So.
Okay. And so it's email is tbickett@agrisk.net.
Correct.
So it's Bickett.
Correct.
For those of you that are not watching on YouTube and cannot see his name, I will have it in the show notes as well. I'll put his information in there for you to get a hold of him.
Perfect.
But if you want to reach out to him, he will be able to help you answer any of those questions. But again, if you're not marketing, I'm going to ask you why.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Tim, for being here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
All right, all. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. I hope that you enjoyed this podcast and you learned something, because we all know the light went off for me. So I'm hoping that you learned something as well. As always, please leave a review. Please email me if you have anything that you want me to talk about. I have a couple episodes coming up and just requests from listeners. So I very much appreciate that. MaryJo@withoutthebank.com. Otherwise, you have a great day, and I'll be in touch next week, Friday morning. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Farming Without the Bank podcast. We hope today's episode has inspired you to take control of your finances in new ways. Don't forget to check out our website, farmingwithoutthebank.com, and engage with us on our Facebook page, Farming Without the Bank. Join us next week as we smash more financial myths and empower you to accomplish your financial goals.